Welcome to Everyday Linux User. In this video, I'm going to show you 30 of the most commonly used Linux commands. Okay, today we're going to learn some Linux commands. I'm going to start off with compgen. Compgen allows you to see all the commands that are available on your system. So if you do compgen -c, that's the list of commands. As you can see, it scrolled quite quickly. So with that, let's move on to the next command, which is the more command. So if I do compgen -c, and then we do pipe more, the commands run a page at a time. So these are all the commands that you can run on your system, and there's obviously quite a lot of them. The next one we will learn is the man command. So now we've got a list of commands here. These are all the commands that you can run on your system. So the man command gives you a manual for every single command, or most of the commands. Not every command's got a manual. So if I do man on chown, for instance, you can see it gives me a full description of the command, what it does, and all the parameters that you can use with that command. So they're the first two commands you should learn. If your boss comes to you and says, hey, I want you to do this, and you have no knowledge of the Linux terminal, by using the compgen command, you can get a list of all the commands, and then you can then use the man command to read the manuals about the commands, and without any other knowledge, you might be able to get to where you need to be. You can use the Q to quit the man command at any point in time. So the next thing I want to do is talk about basic directory usage and how you navigate your system. So the first command we're going to use is cd, and your directory structure is like a tree. So the very opening folder on your system is a slash like that. So it's worth, the cd command stands for change directory. So that changed my directory to the very top folder in the system. If I want to list everything that's in that folder, I can do ls. And that tells me all the folders that are underneath the root folder. You can use man on ls, and this gives you a more descriptive list of options that you can use with ls. One of the common ones is ls -a, which lists all of the commands. You can list directories with -d. Okay, so if I want a more descriptive list of the files in a folder, I can do ls -al. And that tells you various things about all the objects in the directory that you're looking at. So I'm currently looking at the root folder, and going from left to right, the first characters here, they're the permissions that you have. The second column is the number of hard links to a file. That's a separate thing. I'm not going to cover that in this guide. You've got the owner of the object, and then the group, the size, and the last access date, I believe that is, and then you got the actual name of the thing. So if it begins with a D, that means that it is a directory. So in this case, boot is a directory. If it doesn't begin with a D, it's a file. And if it begins with an L, it means it's a link. So the bin folder there is actually pointing to usr/bin. So it's like a shortcut to another folder. So for most people, you don't want to be working from the root command. You have very little reason to be outside of your home folder. So with the cd command, the change directory, you can use the tilde and that will take you to your home. How do you know which folder you're in at any point in time? That there is a command called pwd, which gives you your present working directory. And I can do ls-al on that, and it gives me all the files in my home folder. So you can see I've got directories for, actually is including my hidden folders. If it begins with a dot, it's a hidden folder, unless it's the first two. The dot at the top is the current directory, the two dots is the previous directory, and then you've got these ones here are all hidden files generally. So then you've got a folder called desktop, which I've got a dev folder, documents folder, downloads folder, music folder, and you can see there's different hidden folders for like OpenShot, and then you've got videos, and I've got VirtualBox VMs, etc. So if I want to CD into any one of those folders, I can do CD into downloads, for instance, and then I can do an ls there, and it'll give me all the files. ls-al gives me more details about that file, and that's how you can navigate your way around your system. So the next thing I want to do is in my home folder. We'll do pwd to prove that again, and I'm going to show you how to create a folder. And to create a folder, use mkdir, and you can either qualify it with the full path. So I could do home Gary my new folder like that, and this would create a folder called new folder. So I can do that, or I can do mkdir my new folder 2, and that will, so the first one, this one here, will go to the home folder /home/Gary, and then create a folder called my new folder. If, as I'm already in home Gary, I could just do mkdir my new folder and the folder name. I can't use the same folder name as I've used before, which is why I've added a 2 on the end. So if I do an ls-al now, you'll see that there is a my new folder and a my new folder 2. So I can cd into that folder. So if I clear is another good command for clearing the window. So ls-al here, there's nothing in my folder, but you'll see I still get 2 lines back. Now you get the dot, which is the present working directory, and then the dot is the previous folder. So that's why you always get 2 returned. So obviously my folder is empty. Let's create a file. So we can create a file just by using a command called touch. And touch allows me to just type the word touch and then the name of the file. So testfile1.txt. So if I do ls-al now, you can see I've got a testfile1.txt and it's 0 in length. If I want to edit the file, most systems now come with a editor called Nano. So you can just do, because I own that file, it's under my thing, I can just do nano and testfile1.txt. If I didn't own the file and I wasn't in the group, then I would need admin permissions or the permissions of the user, and I'll get to that command a bit later on. So if I take nano and I type hello world in there, and I can do Control and O, lets me output it, and you can see at the bottom here it's got the name it's going to output it to, and then I can do Control and X to exit the file. So I clear again and I do ls-al. You'll now see that the size of my file is now 12 bytes long. So now, as you saw previously, I created my new folder 2. Say I want to copy testfile1.txt into my new folder 2. So I can do copy, the name of the file that I want to copy, and then I can say where I want to copy it to. So in this case, I can do The tilde always takes your home folder, and then /, and I can do my new folder 2. And then if I want to give it the same name, all I have to do is put a dot, and the dot means give it the same name as the file I've given it. So if I now cd, and I can do the same thing again, I can go tilde / my new folder 2. And I do ls, you can see that my new folder 2 has test file 1 in it. It's worth pointing out that I could qualify with the full path. I didn't have to put the tilde in. So I'm going to copy this test file 1. And I'm going to do /home /Gary / my new folder. And I'm going to give the file a different name, and I can call it test file 2.txt. And if I go to Chrome Gary, my new folder, clear, and do ls -al, you'll see that I've now got test file 1 and test file 2. Say I want to move the file, I don't want to copy it, I want to move it to a different folder. So I'm going to make a new directory, and I'll call it home Gary, my new folder 3. And you don't have to move into the folder to see the contents of the folder. So if I do ls Gary, my new folder 3, it'll show me the contents of that folder. So as you can see, there's nothing in it. So I'm going to move test file 1.txt into that new folder. So if I do move mv, and I do test file 1.txt, and I can do home Gary, my new folder 3. I'll put the dot on to give it the same name. So if I do an ls to prove where I am, pwd, I'm in my new folder. If I do an ls -al now, you'll see test file 1 is now gone. There's only test file 2 left. But if I do an ls home Gary, my new folder 3, there's a file called test file 1.txt. So it's also worth pointing out that you can use wildcard characters. So I'm going to go to home Gary, my new folder 3. I'm going to do touch test file 3.txt, touch test file 4.txt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do copy test file star.txt, that's an asterisk, and then I'm going to move that into home Gary, my new folder. And if I put the star there as well, I made a mistake there. If I put a dot, not the star, yeah. So if I list my new folder now, I'm in my new folder 3. So if I go to, I'm going to use the tilde again, just to prove that you can keep using tilde. So I'm there, and you'll see that I've now got 4 files, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I list my files, you'll see that 2 of them are empty, 3 and 4. It's because I just used touch on them. So what I want to do is remove those files, and if you want to do remove, you can do rm, and you can just name the file you want to remove. And you'll see there's 3 left. If I want to remove an entire folder, so if I want to remove my new folder 3, if I just, so I see cd ... there, which takes you back up a folder. It's worth noting that one. So if I do present working directory, I'm in home Gary. I want to remove my new folder 3. So if I do my new folder 3, you'll see I'll get an error. You cannot remove it as it's a directory. I could do rmdir, my new folder 3, which is remove directory, but it's going to complain because the directory is not empty. So what you can actually do here is I could go into the folder and remove all the files in the folder one by one. Or I could go into the folder and remove using the wildcard character to remove everything. So rm star does remove star. Or I can do rm minus r, which means remove recursively. So imagine I've got a folder under here called my new folder 3, and then under that my new folder 4, new folder 5, new folder 6, all one folder underneath each other. And then if I do my new folder 3, it will delete the contents of every folder from that folder down. So I can do my new folder 3. So if I ls minus al now, you'll see there's only a my new folder and a my new folder 2. I'm going to go back into my new folder. And I'm going to remove test file 4 because it's got nothing in it. Clear ls. Say I want to see the contents of a file, but I don't want to edit it. I can use the cat command for that. Cat allows you to see the contents of a file. There you go. Another command you can use, which is similar, is called tail, and that will show you the last few lines of a file. In this case, I haven't got many lines in my file, but that shows me the last one. So let's edit the file. We'll do there is a quicker way of doing this. That might be enough. As you can see, it's not shown hello world. It's just showed hello world to 10. So if I do a man on tail, you can see it. You can put the minus n to see how many lines you want to show. So if I clear that and I do tail minus n5 test file 1.txt, it'll only show the last 5 lines. You'll notice there's a space at the bottom. I've obviously got a line at the end of my file. So if I nano test file 1, you can see there's a blank line there. So if I take that out and then do tail 5 again, you'll see it does the last 5 lines. Whereas cat, if I do cat on test file 1, it does the entire file. Okay, so let's go back to my home folder. So I'm in there, clear. Say I want to find a file. The command for finding files is called find, and I can find from a particular point in time. So if I do find / and I do minus name, and I do test file dot text, and you definitely want the more on this one. Then it will find all the files that I probably just want the word test file. It should find all the files that have test file in their name. But because I've done from the / that's looking through every single folder in the system, and you'll see there's lots of permissions denied because I don't have access as the Gary user to see the contents of all the folders that it's searching. So it's not a great example. So instead, what we're going to do is find dot / minus name, and we'll call it test file, and then we'll do like more. Need the asterisk. The asterisk is a wildcard. It couldn't find test file on its own, but with the asterisk, it's saying find me anything called test file with anything else afterwards. So in this case, I've got a my new folder 2 with test file 1, my new folder with test file 1, and a test file 2. This is definitely a command that you'll want to use the man for. And there's lots of different options here. The next command I'm going to show you is the ln command. This enables you to create symbolic links. You can also create hard links, but I'm going to teach you symbolic links because they're more commonly used. So you can think of a symbolic link as a shortcut. It links one file to another. So in this folder here, I've got one file called testfile1.txt, and if I do an ls for lost the ability to type, my new folder, you can see I've got two files, testfile1 and testfile2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a link. And if you put the -s, it means it's a symbolic link. And I'm going to say home Gary, my new folder, testfile2.txt. And I'm going to create it in home Gary, my new folder 2, and I'm going to call it testfile2.txt. And if I do, so I'm still in my new folder 2, so I've got ls-al, you can see I've now got a file called testfile2.txt, but if you notice there's an arrow pointing to home Gary, my new folder, testfile2.txt. So if I look at the contents of home Gary, my new folder, testfile2.txt, you can see it's got one line in it. But I'm in my new folder 2, so if I nano testfile2.txt and I add in hello world 2, I can now run the same command again. And as you can see, the contents in the my new folder file, testfile2 has changed as well. The next command I'm going to show you is sudo. Now sudo is used to run a command as another user. So I'm going to do this in a couple of steps. So I'm going to do it the first time because I want to create a new user. And to be able to create a new user, I need user admin permissions or root permissions. Now people often think that sudo is just used for giving you root permissions to run a command, which is partially true. But if I show you man sudo, well, it actually says sudo allows a permitted user to execute a command as a super user or another user, as specified by the security policy. So that's a key distinction. Is that by default it gives you super user permissions, but you can also use sudo to impersonate another user. So the reason that I want to teach you sudo is I want to create a user, and the command for adding a new user is useradd, and then you -m will create a home folder for that user. And if I give the user a name, Steve, for instance, you'll see I get permission denied because as Gary, I do not have enough permissions to create a new user. But if I do sudo useradd -m Steve, whoops, if I do sudo useradd -m Steve, it's created me a user called Steve. Now, I can't log in as Steve at the moment because I haven't given Steve a password, so I'm going to do that now. And the command to give a set a password is sudo password, and then the user you want to set the password for. So in this case, I'm going to give them a password, and it's updated successfully. So now we've got the password sorted. Incidentally, this is my own user. I can actually change my own password without sudo just by typing password. And all I have to do is give the current password a new password, and that's how you change your password via the command line. I'm not going to do that because I like the one I've got at this moment in time. And it's going to error out. There you go. So now I want to log in as Steve. You can switch user using a command called su, and then you type in the name of the password you want to switch user to. So in this case, I'm going to switch user to Steve, and I'm going to type in the password for Steve. And you see I've just got a dollar prompt here. But I should be able to go to home Steve. There's not much there, but if I do present working directory, I'm in home Steve. So if I create a file for Steve, you'll see that the group Steve and the owner is Steve and the Steve files.txt. So now Steve might want to look at my file in the Gary folder. So let's see if Steve's got any access to Gary's folder at all. So ls-al home Gary, my new folder. And yes, he does. He has the permissions to view that folder. Does he have access to edit the files in that folder? File within the folder. Home Gary, my new folder, test file 1.txt. And what you'll see down here is that test file 1 is unwritable. So Steve is not able to edit this file, and we'll prove that point. Right name, error item. What he can do is he can put it in his own folder, I believe. And now if I do an ls, and you can do tail on test file 1.txt, and Steve has a copy of test file 1.txt in his folder. It's a completely separate file to the one that's in the Gary folder. So at this point, it's probably worth talking about permissions. So let's look at the files up here. Let's look at Steve's file here. So the first parameter tells you what type of item it is. So you can see for .local there, it's a directory, .config is a directory, and then you've got the dot, which is current directory, it's a directory. Dot is a previous directory, so it's a directory. So it's got the D on the front. If it's got an L on the front, it's a link. If it's just a dash, that means it's a file. The next three here are the permissions for the user. So as Steve, Steve's got the ability to read test file 1 and write test file 1, and the third one is execute permissions. So that would be on things that are like scripts or applications. So test file 1 is a text file, so there's no application, so that's why there's a dash there. The next three are the permissions against the group. So there's a group called Steve, and again, it's got read and write permissions against test file 1. And the third one is the permissions that everyone else has got. So everyone else has got the permission to read the file, but they don't have the permission to edit it or execute it because it's not a executable file. So if I now change the permissions, so I'm going to do something called change mod, and there's two ways of doing change mod. There's one, you can do it where you add or minus the permission you want to add, or you can change the bit count for the files. So let me show you a quick thing about the numbers that make up the permissions. So I have a file I've just created, and it's called new file 1. And as you can see, it's got RW. So it means that the user can read and write, the group can read and write, anyone in the Steve group can read and write, and everyone else can just read that file. So I'm going to switch user to Gary quick. Home Gary. So I'm going to go to home Tom. Sorry, home Steve. And you can see new file 1's there. So I'm going to nano new file 1.txt. And as you can see, it's unwritable, so I can't write this file. So if I switch user back to Steve, and we do ls minus al, and we'll just do it on the new file 1. So I can do change mod, and we can use different numbers for the different files. So there's 3 numbers that you use. The first one would be for the user. The second number is for the group, and the third number's for the other. So if I go for 755 on new file 1.txt, and then we do ls minus al new file 1.txt, you'll see that I've now given execute permissions on the file, which I really don't want to do. I've given execute permissions for the group. Note there's no write permissions, and I've given execute permissions on for other users. So these numbers are kind of key. So it works in a bit type fashion. So let's look at our new file 1 again. So I'm going to change the mod. We're going to ignore the first 2 numbers. The first 2 numbers are for user and for group. All we're worried about is other user permissions. So if I give it a 1, and then I do new file 1.txt, you'll see that 1 just gives it execute permissions. So if I now do 752, again the 7 is for the first 3, the 5 is for the second set of 3, and the 2 is for these. So you see I've now got write permissions, but I haven't got execute or read permissions. So if I now do change mod 753, I'll have both the last 2 numbers. So it works in a sort of like binary fashion. So 1 gives you X, 2 gives you W, 3 gives you X and W, 4 will give you read. So we'll prove that point now. So now the file has just got read permissions. So if I want to give the read and write permissions, I don't want execute, so I don't want 5, because that's why groups got. What I want to give it is 6, which is a 4 for the R and a 2 for the W. And you see, now everyone's got the ability to read and write that file. So what I really want to do on this file is, and what that means is everyone can now read and write, so I can read and write as the user, anyone in the group can read and write, and anyone in the world can read and write. So if I now switch back to Gary, whoops, I'm still in the Steve folder, so I can now nano new file 1.txt. And you can see, all right, so what's interesting here is I can actually add some text to the file, and as you can see, it's now got text in there. What's worth noting, as Gary, you've also got permissions against the directory. So if I go look at Steve, as Gary, I've only got read and execute permissions. I don't have the ability to create new files in that folder. So if I go into the Steve folder as Gary and try and create a file, it's going to say permission denied. So you can use the same permissions to grant access to folders as you can to files. So I'm going to switch back to Steve. And I'm going to take away the permissions for all users to write. So I'm going to change mod 6.6. I just want the ability to read on that file. So what that means is Gary will now be able to read the file again, but anyone, so Steve, the user, can read the file and write to the file, and anyone in the Steve group. So I'm going to double back to the sudo command. Let's have a look at the. You can see that new file 1, I've only got read permissions on. So if I nano, it says the file is unwritable. So what I could do is sudo nano new file 1.txt, and then I've got permissions to edit the file. We'll prove that point. So as you can see, sudo, I was running as root user there. That means root changed that file, not Gary. What I can also do is use sudo to impersonate the other user, as in Steve, as follows. So to impersonate Steve, I can do sudo minus u Steve, and then I can do nano new file 1.txt. And now you'll notice I've still got permissions to write, so I can do. But it's important to note that I'm running this as if I was Steve, not as a super user. And where that becomes important is things like logging, or if somebody's doing some sort of monitoring of systems to see who's been editing files. The chances are you won't have root permissions to an admin system so you wouldn't be able to use the sudo. You will if it's on your home PC, but if you're in a work environment, you probably won't have that access. That would be for sysadmins. It's unlikely you'll have the permissions to impersonate another user using sudo, but it's worth noting that if you use sudo and you impersonate somebody else, any changes to that file will be changed as if you were that user. So important that you don't give your passwords away. Okay, so let's try something else. We're going to go back a folder. We're going to go to the home folder. If I do pwd, it's home Gary. So I want to go back one folder more. And you can see I've got a Gary and a Steve. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called accounts. Don't have permission, so we'll do sudo make the accounts. So we've got a folder called accounts. If we do ls-al accounts, root has permissions to read, write, and execute in that folder, and to read and execute. So if I'm now Gary and I go into that folder and I try and edit a file, I shouldn't be able to write it, I don't think. No, permission denied. Which obviously I don't want. I want to be able to use that folder. Now I could grant permissions to Gary to use that folder, but I want Steve and Gary to be able to use that folder. Now I could grant permissions for both Gary and Steve to use that folder, or I can create a group, which is what I'm going to show you now. Create a group called test accounts. Permission denied. So a quick one for sudo, by the way. If you do sudo with 2 exclamation marks, it's the same as typing sudo group add test accounts again. So I've now got a group called test accounts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the accounts folder so it's owned by, so that the group is for test accounts. So if I do change group, accounts, and test accounts, had it the wrong way around. So change group, test accounts, as you can see, permission denied. So I'll show you the sudo bang bang thing. And now you'll see the group for accounts has changed to test accounts. So anyone that belongs to the test accounts group can now access that folder and read the files within the folder. So I want to add Gary into the test accounts group. So I'm going to use a command called useradd. So sudo has to be sudo because it needs to be a super user that has permissions to do this. Type useradd, and I'm going to do -a and then -g, and then we're going to do test accounts, and then the user that we're going to add, so Gary. So if we ls -al, within the test accounts folder, within the accounts folder, Gary should be able to now list the files in that folder. So if I go into accounts, there's no files in the folder. So what we'll do is going to do sudo touch home accounts new file one.txt. As the super user there, I've created a file in the accounts folder. So if I go into accounts now, do an ls, you can see Gary's got the ability to look at new file one. File is actually owned by root. One, we don't want that file owned by root. Well, it doesn't matter if it is, but we want the group to be test accounts. So what we can do is change group, and we'll say new file one.txt, and we'll say test accounts, and wrong way around again. Always get this wrong way around. It's test accounts and new file one. Oops. Permission denied again. So sudo bang bang, and there you can see it's done. Ls -al, and you can see new file one belongs to test accounts. So now we've got read permissions. So what we're going to do is change the mod on that, and 664. Again, no permissions to do that. And you can see rewrite permission. So now I should be able to edit that file and add some text in there. Still says permission denied. What I'm also going to do, clear this ls -al, and we're going to change the permissions on the folder. Change mod 664. Actually, we want 774. 775 on accounts. So what that's saying is 7 would be read, write, and execute, read, write, and execute, and in this case, read and execute for everyone else. So that means any other user other than anyone in the test accounts will be able to read files in the folder and list the directory. What I want is anyone in test accounts to be able to read, write, execute anything in that directory, and obviously the owner, which is root, can do everything as well. One day I'll remember to keep the sudo at the front. So as you can see, I've now got read, write, execute, and read and execute on the test account. So if I go into test accounts, if I go into accounts and then I edit new file 1.txt, it's still saying unwritable. Okay, so one thing you need to do is log out and log back in. So if I just switch user to Gary again, now my new group permissions will be applied. So if I now nano new file 1.txt, I can now edit the file new file 1.txt, and if I do -al on that, I can edit the file. I can create files in the folder. So as a Gary user, I don't have permissions as my user because I've only got read permissions. But because I'm in the group test accounts, I've got read and write permissions. So the importance of that is that if I want Steve to have access to the same files, I can do user mod -a -g test accounts to Steve, user mod of course, and I'm going to need to use sudo for this. So now I can switch user to Steve, and Steve can now log into the accounts folder, and he also can edit test file 1. So the importance of that is if you've got a group of people, maybe accounts department, you want them to save all their files in a folder called accounts, you can create a folder called accounts, you can add a user group, and you can add all the users into that group and then give that group permissions to that folder. Now, there's one more thing I want to do here, is that the owner of the files in there are root. So the next command I'm going to show you is called change own. So imagine Gary is the manager of the accounts department. So you want him to be the owner of the files and folders within. So we're going to clear the screen because it's getting a bit messy. So what I'm going to do is change own, and you can do, obviously need sudo for this. Change own accounts, and then it's to Gary. Oops, and obviously need to be Gary as well, because Steve's not going to be in the sudo group. So if I switch user to Gary, and now I do sudo change own accounts Gary, test accounts Gary. I'm going to get this the right way around one day. Sudo change own Gary test accounts. So in this case, sudo gives you the super user permissions. Change own changes the owner. The owner becomes Gary, and the folder is actually accounts. So if we do ls-al now, you can see that Gary is now the owner of the accounts folder. If I go into the accounts folder and do ls-al, you'll see that the new file 1 has still got the root as the owner. So what I could have done is -r, and what that does is recursively sets all the owners of all the files in the folder down below to be Gary as well. So if I go into accounts now, you can see that Gary is the owner of the new file 1 and new file 2. Obviously he's not the owner of the previous folder because that's the home folder. The next command I'm going to show you is gzip. So here's my files. I've got new file 1, new file 2. So if I gzip new file 1.txt, what you'll see at the moment is 26 bytes long. So if I, it's actually got bigger because the way compression works is it obviously has an algorithm to compress the file, and unless the file is a certain size in the first place, it's going to make the file bigger. So a better test, I'm going to create one now. Now, test file 3. All these hello world should be easily compressed because it's got a lot of repeating words and characters. So if I do lsminus.al, you'll see that test file 3 is 139 bytes long. If I gzip test file 3.zip now, .text now, you'll see that test file 3 is now 75 bytes long. It's compressed. And the way it's done that, I don't know the exact algorithm, but a lot of those repeated words will be compressed, and it will use an algorithm to prevent the repeated words. So maybe the word hello has the number 10 in front of it to say that it's got to be on 10 lines, something like that. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but yeah, as you can see, the file's smaller. So that shows you how to compress a single file, and you can unzip that file using gunzip. And you have to put the extension on. And you can see my file's back to being 139 bytes long again. What happens if you want to do more than one file at a time? Well, gzip you don't want to use on its own. What you can do is, so I'm going to go back a folder and clear. And so if I want to compress an entire folder, I do tar minus zcvf, and you give it a file name. And then you say the path. So in this case, home accounts. As you can see, I've got permission denied, so I should use sudo. And as you can see, there's now a accounts.tar.gz. Now the original folder is 4096 bytes. The new one is 356. Look at the permissions on that. Because I did the tarring as root user, the permissions of that tar file is root, and the group is root as well. Worth bearing in mind based on the permissions we spoke about earlier. So a quick distinction: tar enables you to group a load of files and folders under one file name. So I could have done it without the Z option, and if I don't put the GZ on the end, the GZ is just an extension. So accounts.tar is the same as it basically groups all the files in the accounts folder into one file. So you can actually see the contents of a tar file. And to see the contents of a tar file, we can do tar minus tf accounts.tar. And that shows you the contents of everything that's in that tar file. But putting the Z in front of it creates a tar file and zips the file all in one. So I could have done tar cvf, to get the accounts.tar, and then you can use gzip. So I can do gzip on accounts.tar. We'll call it accounts.tar2, and we'll just say accounts.tar. And it's going to make me sudo it because it's all the permissions. And that allows you to overwrite the file. So yeah, that's how you zip and unzip files. So it's worth noting that my accounts.tar.gz to unzip the file. Okay, so if I want to unzip that tar file, so let's remove accounts.tar. And let's remove the accounts folder. And what we're going to do is sudo minus xvf accounts.tar.gz. Obviously, we put the tar command in, and ls minus al. And you'll notice that what it's done is actually created another home folder. It's expanded completely into my home folder, which isn't actually what I wanted to do, but you get the point. I've unzipped the file, and now I've got an accounts folder. I think that's all we're going to do with zip and unzip and tar. You can use the man commands to find out more about them. You can just use zip and unzip. So there is a zip command which works in the normal way of a compressed folder that you get in Windows. So the zip and unzip as well. You can get graphical programs to help you zip files as well, but this is about the command line. So the next command I want to show you is to see what processes are running on your system. So as you can see, I have a screen with the word hello world running continuously. And basically I've got a script running called testloop.sh. So imagine you've got a program and it's never ending and it just keeps going around like this. And I'm going to show you another tab. And I'm going to show you what's in test loop. And what it's saying is, while 1 is equal to 1, print the word hello world, which, as you can see, is exactly what it's doing. So what I want to do is, say I want to see whether that process is running or not. I can do ps minus ef, and I can pipe more, and that will tell me all the processes that are running on my system. Or I can use a command called grep, and that allows me to use a regular expression. That's something you'll need to search up yourself, or it's something for another tutorial. Otherwise, this tutorial is going to go on forever. It allows you to search for text, so I'm going to search for test loop. As you can see, it's come back with a process ID test loop 9841, and so that's how you list processes on your systems if you want to see which processes are running. Another command you can use is called top, and that will show you a graphical view of all the commands running on your system. So as you can see, I've got pulse audio, things like that. Test loop is running there somewhere. Again, you can use the man command to give you more information about the top command and about the ps command. But ps shows you the processes that are running on your system. Useful to know if your boss ever asks you, if you're a junior sysadmin, this is something you should know. So you can use Q to quit that, So obviously, I want to kill my test loop. So if I psef grep test loop.sh, I can do kill, and you can do a -9 is if you put a -9, it's basically going to kill it straight away. It's not, no arguments. It's not going to wait to see if anything's happening. It's just going to say bye bye. So if that thing was doing anything useful, it's going to die. So what you're looking for is the process ID, which is 9785. And that means when I go to my next tab again, it should have stopped running. Yeah, now you can see that it says the word killed, which is good. So I'm going to close that tab. So we're now just in this one. Much more useful command here. If you've got an application that's running, and we'll run one now. I'm going to put under my games. I've got mines. I can start the game mines, but imagine this was causing my system to hang, and it was unresponsive completely. Within my command line, I can type xkill, and that gives me a little crosshair. And if I go over here, I can click that window, and now that's actually dead. So xkill is useful for killing application windows that are hanging or not doing what you want them to do. So next command, moving quite swiftly on, we're coming to the end now. df with the -h shows you the amount of disk space used on each of your file systems. So on SDA1, 263 1 meg size, 11 megabyte used, 250 megabytes to left. Much more useful than that is du. So if we do man on du, this gives you estimated file space usage of particular files. So du on home Gary tells me the disk space usage for all the files in the Gary folder. If you want to know the host name of your computer, you can just do host name. There you go. It's called elementary. And then what about shutting down your computer or rebooting your computer? So again, the manual is useful for this. So you can do shut down -R to reboot your machine, -P to power off. They're probably the ones you want most. You can use -C if you've got a shutdown pending and you want to stop it, if you've got time. You can also use system D to start and shut down your computer as well. I'm not going to demo the shutdown reboot here because obviously it will cancel the video that's recording. And that is the end of the video. Today we've covered 31 different Linux commands. There are a load more, and I will be visiting them in separate videos. Hopefully the ones to do with creating folders, moving files around, doing permissions, etc., they have proven useful to you. If you like the video, click the like button, and if you want to see more content from Everyday Linux User, click the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.